Hi everybody, welcome to Mark's 900. I'm Mark. Now I've got a bit of a problem, but like most people I've got lots of problems. However, this one's to do with my bike, and it's just down to the fact that I can't help comparing my bike to my car. Now that might seem a bit odd because they're like chalk and cheese. Okay, so they're both road vehicles, but apart from that they haven't really got an awful lot in common. However, let me just explain a few of the stats behind both of these, and then you'll see exactly what my issue is. First up then, this is a Mercedes GLA. Okay, it's a Mercedes, but it's a pretty standard family car. It comes in at £40,000 brand new. It weighs 1,500 kilograms, and it's got a 2-litre engine. And that's really all we need to know for this. This, on the other hand, is my Kawasaki Z900. It comes in at £10,000 brand new, so it's a quarter of the price of the car. The engine's a 948cc engine, so it's just under half the size of that engine, and it weighs 212 kilograms, which, if my maths are correct, means it's about 1/7 of the weight of that. Now you'd think then, cost of ownership of this would be much, much cheaper than that. But actually, if we have a quick game of top trumps, you'll see what my problem is.
Right then, the first test is going to be 0 to 60. I'm a complete amateur, never raced, so we're going to do our best. Here we go, up to 30, 40, 50. I'm sure you could do that a lot quicker, and a splat of mud came on the dashboard right at the end there, which is a bit odd. But there we go, 0 to 60 as fast as I could do it. Now I'm supposed to be able to do that in about 3.2 seconds. Mine was more like 5 or something. So that was a bit rubbish, but it was great fun, and now the car's got to try and match that.
Okay, so you've seen 0 to 60 on a motorbike. That was really exciting and quite fast. Now I'm going to do 0 to 60 in my car, so I'm pulled over at the side of a dual carriageway where I can do 60 miles an hour, and here we go. Bit of a wheel spin as we leave the line, and well, it's not very exciting. Oh, there we are, 60 miles an hour. Well, that was pretty slow, and this is no slouch. I mean, it's a fairly quick car, but even so, that was never going to be a competition, was it?
The one thing I will say about a bike is that, as I've just proved, if you want to do 0 to 60 really fast, then it's going to take a considerable amount of skill and practice to do that. I haven't really practiced, and I've got very little skill, so hence my fairly slow speed, but even so, it was quicker than the car. Now, of course, in the car, all I had to do was plant my right foot. That car is particularly easy because it's an automatic as well. So it is literally plant the right foot and away you go. Much simpler, doesn't require any special equipment, training, skills. But in terms of pure 0 to 60 times, this category was always going to be an easy win for the bike.
So okay, let's go on and talk about top speed. No, of course I'm not going to do the top speed. The fact is, this car has a top speed of around about 140 or 150 miles an hour, which I'm never going to see in it unless I go and take it on an autobahn.
Okay then, I've got something to confess to in case you haven't spotted it already. I've actually got a Triumph keyring, only because I picked it up at the motorcycle show, and I haven't given it to my mate who's got a Triumph yet, so it's just hanging there off the bike. Don't take that like I'm just about to buy a Triumph or anything, although I do quite like them. Anyway, back to it, and there is something quite important to mention. The bike at 140 miles an hour would require a rider with a decent level of skill, a full set of kit and balls of steel. The car, on the other hand, could do it with me, dressed in shorts and flip-flops with the kids in the back seat. So, once again, although the car would win on comfort and the bike on excitement and adrenaline, in terms of pure top speed, I'm simply just going to call this one a draw.
So we've talked about performance then, but let's talk about the more kind of day-to-day aspects of owning a vehicle, and in particular, miles to the gallon. Now this thing, as I said, it weighs more than a ton. It's 1,500 kilograms, 1.5 metric tons. It's got a 2-litre engine, and it does 50 odd miles to the gallon. Now that's pretty good for a car. It's not as good as some cars, but it's not bad at all. In fact, I've got an eco button down here as well, which makes it even more frugal, does even more miles to the gallon. We'll come on to that more in a bit later on. But generally speaking, yeah, so 50 miles to the gallon. How about the bike though?
Now the bike, of course, is much lighter, has a much smaller engine, so of course the miles per gallon come in at, oh wait for it, 50 miles to the gallon. Exactly the same as the car. Now, and I cannot fathom this. I mean, this is not some uncompromising sports bike. This is a Z900. It's an all-rounder. It's a commuter, and it does 50 miles to the gallon, the same as a 1.5 ton car. I mean, there are trucks and small lorries now that do that sort of miles per gallon. And the other thing about this is that if I stick a passenger or a pillion on the back of my bike, they sit about 3 foot higher than I do, and the extra wind resistance puts it down to about 40 miles to the gallon. Now, conversely, in the car, I can put 5 people in there and it will still do 50 miles to the gallon. It's a clear win for the car, this one, I'm afraid. I just do not get this one at all.
Right, next up, let's talk about vehicle tax. It's not called road tax, it hasn't been called that for years, it's vehicle tax. The vehicle gets taxed on the amount of emissions that come out the back of it. Again, quite a big engine in this. And when I got the reminder through, the yearly reminder to tell me that I had to pay my tax, for this, for 1 year, it will cost me £30. £30 for vehicle tax. That's not bad. Now that's partly predicated on the fact that I've got a dynamic select button down here which will put me with 3 presses into eco mode. Now eco mode is rubbish, I've got to say. The performance of the vehicle is terrible. It feels soft and spongy. There's just no power when you put your foot down, but it does lots of miles to the gallon, and because it's got that eco mode, what it means is I've got very low vehicle tax.
Okay, so I'm sure you know where this is going. I've just had the reminder through for my vehicle tax for the motorbike. Now, bearing in mind the car was £30, the bike is £101 for the year if I pay it straight off. That's more than 3 times as much as the car. Again, unbelievable. So I actually went onto the website, the government website, and had a look at this. And what I discovered was that anything up to 150cc, you pay like £22 in tax. So that's kind of comparable with the car. But you have to have a bike that's under 150cc. 150 to 400 is £47, 400 to 600 is 75, and anything over 600 is £101. So it doesn't matter if you're on a 601cc commuter that sips fuel and does 80 or 90 miles to the gallon, or whether you're on an R1 or a Rocket 3 or a Z900, all of them are just £101. Now that, to my mind, is just a little bit blunt. And again, we just seem to have got it wrong for motorbikes. I mean, why are we not talking about this? I mean, it's not going to break the bank, but it's just like when you compare it to the car, it doesn't add up. In fact, I quite happily have an eco button on my bike that I don't use, in the same way that I've got one on my car that I don't use, if it brings the tax down. So anyway, a clear win for the car.
Well, things aren't going too well for the bike at the moment, are they? So why don't we talk about insurance? That's another day-to-day aspect of running a vehicle. The insurance on this is around about £300 a year. Now, bearing in mind how much one of these costs and how much damage it could do if you crash it, £300 a year, I guess, is not too bad. I've got a full set of no claims and all the rest of it. A couple of named drivers on there, and that entitles me to carry 4 more people in this car as well. So there you go, 300 quid a year. How about the bike?
So the insurance on my bike is actually slightly higher than it is for the car. Now I just need to explain that. I haven't got as many years no claims bonus for a start. The second thing is that, to my mind, if you slam your car into something, it's going to cost a fortune to whatever you've hit and to the car itself. If, however, I'm in a bike crash of some sort, the likelihood is that most of the damage is going to be done to me as an individual. Now, if I'm not in work, I'm not really earning money. So I have an add-on to my insurance which covers me for personal injury, which I personally think is absolutely essential. I mean, the alternative is I'd end up losing the pets, the kids would starve, the wife would leave me, and then I'd need to sell my bike, and probably in that order. Anyway, with the bike insurance being slightly more expensive than the car, again, I'm going to have to give this one to the car, and that's based purely on the fact that car insurance is much better value than the bike insurance, to my mind. I know I've got add-ons on the bike insurance and that it comes in more expensive as a result, but even so, if you look at it sort of pound for pound, value for money, I've got to give it to the car.
One very boring aspect of owning a vehicle, whether it's a car or a bike of course, is the fact that you've got to service it. Well, this thing's pretty straightforward. I put it in once a year, cost me about £300. Other things I need to replace on the car generally is sort of tyres. So front tyres probably every 12,000 miles. Rear tyres on this, I don't think I've ever replaced them, which is great news. And the tyres themselves, I don't go with the run flat options. I mean, you can spend a fortune on car tyres, but I tend to spend about £100 per tyre. So it's pretty cheap to maintain, if I'm honest. I could take it to Mercedes for a service, but it's well past its warranty, so it's just 300 or 400 quid a year on this. And well, maybe with tyres, let's say £500 a year.
So yeah, you've guessed it, the servicing costs on the bike are pretty much the same as the car. Now, I admit I do take the bike to a Kawasaki dealer and the car goes to my local garage. So it's not an entirely fair comparison, but the other thing I need to bear in mind as well is that the bike needs to go for a 15,000 mile service very soon, and that's going to cost me a whole heap more because they do all the valve clearances and stuff like that. They'll probably stick a new rear sprocket on as well and a chain, so I'm guessing I'm not going to get much change from £1,000. The fact is, bike parts have a harder life and get worn out more quickly. I mean, if you look at a bike that's done 10,000 miles, you might think that's quite a lot. If you saw a car with 10,000 miles on the clock, you'd think, well, that's almost brand new. And then, of course, tyres on the bike are more expensive than the tyres I buy for the car. Okay, so you've got half as many tyres on a bike, but you do have to change them twice as often, so it kind of cancels each other out. And of course, you can't make too many savings on bike tyres because you literally put your life at risk, whereas in the car you can get away with quite cheap tyres, especially if you're just doing normal road speeds and you're not flinging it around the corners of a track or boy racing on the streets. So this one's been a bit of a surprise for me, but given the costs of servicing and keeping a bike roadworthy and in good condition on the roads compared to that of a car, I'm afraid I've once again got to give this one to the car.
Add-ons. There's an interesting consideration when you buy a vehicle and not something you immediately think of, because particularly with a car you don't buy an awful lot for it. I mean, when I was 17 I probably bought seat covers and I bought stereos and graphic equalisers and all kinds of things for the car. In fact, I was a regular visitor to Halfords and would buy all sorts of stuff that I didn't really need. These days, however, the only thing I've bought for my car, which is in fact an add-on, is this air freshener. That cost me £1.50. I don't think I've bought anything else in terms of add-ons. Right, I've got to try and remember everything that I put onto this bike now. So I've got the radiator cover at the front, I've got the bar end mirrors, phone holder, USB slot, I've got a thing there for putting my GoPro on, I've got a screen angel on the screen. I think that's it for the front. Then I've got these sliders that I put on the side. I've got the heel kicks here. I've got a tail tidy, USB under the rear seat, or that's been taken out now, but it was in there at one point. I've got this rear mud guard, I've got the rear fender extender, and I've got the front fender extender as well, down there. Moving around to the other side, I've obviously got an end can on it as well, and I think that's about it. Just for the bike. The other thing I've got on it is the bobbins, which are there, and then of course I've got a rear paddock stand, and then I'm going to get a front paddock stand as well. I think that's it.
Now there are a bunch of things that I completely forgot to mention which are bike related, although not directly on the bike, and that is things like clothing and protective gear. So I've got 2 helmets, 2 jackets, 3 pairs of motorbike trousers, 4 pairs of gloves, a heated jacket on its way if it ever arrives, endless scarves, 2 bike locks, and I've got an entire shelf in the garage with various snake oils to keep the bike running clean and to keep all my kit clean. So barely a month goes by when I don't buy something bike related, although I have to say I haven't actually bought an air freshener for it yet. So as you might guess, in terms of ongoing expense, the bike loses once again.
So you see, having explained all of those things, I'm looking at my bike now thinking, what is the point? I mean, it's more expensive, it just doesn't feel fair. And do you know what? I'm done. I'm done with it.
Of course I'm not done. You see, a 900cc motorbike might not stack up against a car in terms of running costs and comfort, but I for one cannot get enough of it. You can drive a car in your comfy clothes with your seat warmers on and surround sound blasting your ears out, or you can get a bike and have more fun than you ever thought possible with your trousers on. It's not just a form of transport, it's a way of life, and very quickly becomes part of you and it defines you. One lady in my office said that she didn't know my name was Mark until the other day, and she always just refers to me as the motorbike man. Well, I'm happy with that, and I'll be the motorbike man until I can no longer swing my leg over the saddle. So what was the point of this video? Well, really, it's just to explain that if you're watching this thinking you might buy a bike, then have a very careful think about it. You won't hear Martin Lewis on the TV telling you to sell your car and buy a bike as a money saver, because that would be the dumbest thing you ever do. If you really, really want to save money, then get an electric push bike. Yep, I said it. Well, they cost next to nothing to run and will do you the world of good. And if you happen to be in Gloucester, try out Eastgate Cycles. I'm not on commission, by the way, it's just a great bike shop. So my advice is don't get rid of your car just yet, and just go out there and buy a bike to go with it, only because it's a very cool thing to do. It won't save you money, it won't make your life more comfortable, and it will change you forever. Now all you need to do is decide which type, but that's for a whole other video. And for those of you that are already on powered two-wheelers, I didn't need to tell you all this, did I? You already know how awesome you are. Right, I'll see you out there guys, and remember, keep your chains oiled.
On the other hand, this is my Z900. It comes in at around about £10,000. It weighs, fuck, I can't remember.